Victoria Wilshire, and this is Songtradr Happy Hour. A big hello to our audience. Thanks for joining us once again. Let's do a couple of housekeeping tips. First up, don't forget to add your questions in the Q&A window on Zoom or via Facebook chat at any time during the session. Around the 40-minute mark, we'll get to as many of your questions as we can. So let's meet our guests. As a leading rock vocalist fronting her own band in home country South Africa, she shared the stage with major acts such as Fall Out Boy, Maroon 5 and One Republic. Following her first major cut, this producer and songwriter worked with such names as Sean Kingston, Jeffree Star, Olivia Holt, Alien, Ant Farm and more. On the sync placement side, her work has been heard on the Netflix shows Insatiable, Dark and Girlboss. Placements on brands include Maybelline, Fabletics, Kaiser Permanente, Vaseline and Ardene. She is currently scoring the upcoming motion picture Step Up All In. Please welcome power songwriter Esjay Jones. Hi Esjay.
What's up? The crowd goes wild. I thought there was going to be a whole bunch of people on here. Is it just us three and everyone else is hidden?
We should have put little pictures in there of people for you.
Like
all right. So
let's the weekend at Bernie's guy should be like the dead weekend at Bernie's guy, like just hanging out. That would be
like,
awesome.
Pop him up. Okay, so on to our next guest. David Guetta, Jason Wade from Lifehouse, Colby Calais, Jordan Smith, winner of The Voice Season 9. These are just some of the multi-platinum artists that this songwriter, producer and artist has written with. His songwriting and production work with artist group CD9 on their hit Guilty Pleasure went platinum. He often develops new artists for major labels like Sony Music, Sony Mexico, Universal, Capitol, Republic, Atlantic and RCA. As an artist, his music has represented brands such as Apple, Microsoft, Google, Nikon, Samsung, the NFL, Virgin America and more. We're excited to have with us another power songwriter, Benj Hurd. Hi, Benj.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Benj.
Yeah, and that's just the perfect last name for the music industry, isn't it? Hurd, Benj Hurd, your song, yeah.
Be heard.
That's a terrible joke and such a good way to start this.
No, that's meant to be.
Yeah. It's very gracious of you. Our topic is power songwriting for placement, specifically writing to gain a foothold and create some momentum in the sync licensing space or placements with artists. But the point is, I think, just a slightly different venture to just pure creative explorations in songwriting for art's sake. So, Esjay, perhaps we can start with you. Your first major cut came in 2013 from the co-written track I Choose You for Def Jam Records artist Time Flies. Were you writing specifically for pitching purposes?
I wasn't. I kind of got into the songwriting production game organically from coming from a band, but I didn't realize at that time, at that point in my life, how much money there was to be made in the sync game, you know. So I actually, my very, very first placement was in South Africa with a VW or a Jeep ad. I can't remember when it was, but it was called the Out There campaign. And that was probably in around 2008. So, and that was placed with one of my songs for my band in South Africa.
Well, congratulations on that, but I'm just going to tear up all my questions now. You didn't write.
No, keep it going. Keep it going.
How about you, Benj? What was your first major cut?
That's actually kind of a hard question to say, like, what was a major cut. I'd say my first TV placement was for a very prestigious show called 16 and Pregnant. And
Cool.
it was over a scene where one of the girls was giving birth. And,
Oh, wow.
So that song was not written for that show, but it worked. It totally worked. It was one where they called, whoever it was, the music supervisor called me and said, this is airing tomorrow night. Is that okay with you? And that was it. There was no like long negotiation. It was like, are you okay with this? Yes. at that point, I feel like it was too late to say. If you said no,
Right.
do. It's already been locked. But yeah, that was cool.
Well, it's not always that easy, right?
No, it's not.
And I guess I have to ask you, were you writing with pregnant women giving birth in mind?
No, I actually wrote that song. It was called, oh, now I just totally blanked. Anyway, I'll tell you this title. I'll look it up. But I actually wrote that for a fundraiser and for a kid that had cancer. And they didn't ever use the song. So it was written for something, and then they didn't use it. So I released it as part of an EP, and I gave it to a music supervisor in Los Angeles, and he actually used it in the show. So that's the moral of the story. I would say I've never written for a pitch and gotten the pitch, but everything that I've written as a pitch has been placed somewhere else. So.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, isn't it? I think every songwriter's probably been through that, where they're writing specifically for something and it just wasn't picked up for that. Would you say that after getting what you would call your first major cut, that then the real hard work begins? Because then the question is, how do you really leverage that momentum and start getting the career wheels going? Esjay, what do you think?
I feel like it's different between sync and licensing and writing for an artist or a label. You know, it's kind of when a music supervisor finds a song that they love that just happens to have been cut by an artist, it's like, well, that's the one we want. You know, when you're actually writing for film and TV, it's different. So I feel like they're two different beasts. So it's hard to answer that question to leverage success off of a first major cut, because your first major cut could have been a song that maybe would never get placed, yeah, like in film and TV. But I guess, I mean, speaking from experience, I think that I didn't leverage my first major cut that I had in the States. I didn't leverage that at all, because my mind was so focused on being a top 40 songwriter and producer. And I guess my vision, I had like horsey blinkers on, going like, that's what we have to do. We have to get these songs to the artists. Meanwhile, I have this pot of gold, these 300 songs sitting here that could have been licensed and we made a fortune from, you know. So I think it's two completely different beasts. And once we get further down in this conversation, I think we'll reveal the beast as we go.
Yeah, layer by layer. So how about you, Benj? Would you say that you were able to capitalize on the initial success then, even perhaps posting on your social channels and becoming known as a songwriter, a power songwriter?
Definitely not off that first one, but I think that's part of the learning curve. And what I've learned since then is that it is essential to post about your successes. And it may be really annoying to people like your friends that follow you and like, all right, shut up, I get it, you got a placement. But those posts aren't for those people. Those posts are for music supervisors to see that you've been taken seriously by another music supervisor and you're trustworthy and you're easy to work with. And all of that shows that you're a professional, and it actually builds your clout and allows you to get bigger placements and essentially better negotiation. So I think telling people is one of the most important things. But I didn't do that when I first started. So it's a slow build.
Well, I was going to ask that if you actually had a method for positioning yourself during the actual pitching process for a better chance of success. And I guess part of that would be building your profile, correct?
Yeah, I think so. And I think a big part of this is preparing for success, because you cannot predict how a placement is going to come or where it's going to come from. You can say you have a formula, but the formula doesn't work repeatedly. I mean, in most cases, for a big placement, a lot of times it's just like this dot connected to this dot, and you know, you can't predict that stuff. So the best thing you can do is be prepared. So to have all your ducks in a row, have all your files outputted in correct formats and alternate versions and instrumentals and registration, and make it as easy as possible for the supervisor to just take the song if they want it. So I'd say that's the best way you can position yourself. It's not necessarily like there's no magic equation for getting a placement. It's putting your stuff out there so people can find it and being ready to capitalize on that.
What a shame. I thought there was a magic recipe. Yeah.
Just like Ben said, it really is all about relationship building, you know. So it's really making those relationships with the music supervisors, going out of your way to make those tedious, annoying edits that you aren't getting paid for. You know, it's going that extra mile so that, and being on time, because believe it or not, people in the music industry are not ever on time or hitting deadlines. So being that person where they know they can come to you and they're like, we're gonna have Benj do this because we know he always delivers before the deadline. So I think that's really important.
And then great advice too. Deadlines are so important because usually, especially in the sync world, everyone is chasing a deadline. And so if you're not there, ready to go, often the opportunity passes by, which is a real shame.
Yeah.
So for you, Esjay, how else do you prepare, and how do you nurture those relationships with the music supervisors?
Well, again, I'm going to come from like two different worlds, because there's the sync and licensing, and then there's the writing from the artist's point of view, you know, or writing with an artist. So really kind of from the sync and licensing point of view, nurturing those relationships is, like I said, you know, just picking up the phone, making a phone call. Is there anything that if you have that connection, you know, once you have the email sent and the conversations flowing, somebody loves the song. I feel like we're in a world of texting and calling people freaks people out these days for some reason, but I think it makes a difference. You know, it's like, hey, this is Esjay. I just wanted to make sure that you had everything you wanted in the correct format. Like, I want to set you up for success, you know, and I think that approach, you know, coming from a musician in business, you know, you're not just kind of lackadaisical about your work. And then, you know, I think coming from the point of view of making relationships with artists or writing with them, I mean, it's the same thing. People have to trust you. You know, it's like you build a level of trust with an artist, a label, a music supervisor, whoever it may be, because people want to, before they hand over their musical babies to you, or they hand over this project which they want you to score, you know, they want to trust you. They want to know that we're on the same page and that you're going to deliver. So I think it's about it's really a personality thing, you know, going the next mile, or going the extra mile to make these relationships.
Would you agree with that, Benj? It's a personality thing?
Absolutely. I think that's something that Esjay does really, really well, that I haven't really kept up with a lot of my relationships directly with supervisors. And that's something that I need to improve on, because I know supervisors, and I have had that initial communication with like, hey, let me know if you need anything. But if you're not constantly in touch and sending them new stuff, you got to keep on their mind, or they'll just forget. You know, you got to be the one that they're like, yeah, do I have anything on the top of their brain? Is your name going to come up? And that's a really good point, and something that I need to get back into.
Right. So I guess you're suggesting to be more proactive, be active. Otherwise, if you're not taking action, then things actually don't happen. I'm sure there are plenty out there, though, in the community who would like to know, how do you get that initial doorway in? how do you open the door? Because like once you've got the relationship, you can interact and you can pitch.
Mm-hmm.
That first step, how did you guys do it? Benj, what about you?
I think there's two ways for me. One is just meeting supervisors at conferences, and I did the ASCAP Leonard, drawing a blank on what it was called. My memory is not great, but it was like an ASCAP small group of like 14 songwriters, and they kind of took them through like a class and brought in music supervisors and introduced them. And that way, and through conferences like the ASCAP conference and Billboard, and you can meet them there. Other than that, I think one really important way is when you have a placement that you've gotten through, maybe it wasn't your connection. This has happened a couple of times recently where I was put in touch with a supervisor for something that wasn't my project really, but I was a songwriter on the thing. And to take advantage of that and to follow up and say, hey, do you have any other projects any other way that I can help you? And I think that's also an important point, is that music supervisors are used and abused by the musician community at large because we want something from them. So make sure that you approach it in a way that gives them value and that you're trying to help them, and not just taking. So
yeah, they would get hit up a lot, and
yep.
so don't pester and then take it personally. I think we've covered this before in another panel as well, where the music supervisors themselves were saying the same thing. Please don't continually follow up, because if we like what you've sent, we will follow up with you. That's the words that came out of the music supervisor's mouth. So how about you, Esjay, with the initial connections? I guess now it's kind of hard to do it in person. Online, is it? How do you do it, or how did you do it?
Before this whole lockdown, I've been doing this for like 20 years. So the music industry is a hustle, and let nobody tell you that the music industry is not for the faint-hearted. I can promise you that. It's your responsibility to be, if you really take your art seriously, if you take yourself seriously as a producer, songwriter, if you're writing for film and TV, it's your responsibility to be at every single panel, every single convention, if there's an ASCAP thing, if there's a BMI thing, I think that's one of the ways, really, whatever's going on in your town that has anything to do with music, whether there's live bands, you never know who's going to be there. I think that it's your responsibility to get in there and meet musicians, because you don't know what that one person, the connections that one person could have. And just because of your kindness and your interest in this one person, it could open up your entire world to their Rolodex, So I really believe in that human connection. I think it's important to go out and meet people. It's important to be humble, to listen to people, to collaborate. Now things are a little bit different because everything's online. It's been 5-6 months now. So I don't know, I guess subscribing to a platform like Songtradr is going to change your life, because the level of songs and musicianship and art that is coming through, it's like you really have to up your game, so it's kind of, if you want to be heard, if you want your songs placed, like you need to be hitting the level of how good the songs are on there and better. And then I don't know. I think when Songtradr first started, I actually just cold called the office, and I knocked on the office door, and I was like, "Hey, I'm Esjay. I'm here. I've just signed up." So, and that was probably about 6 years ago or 5 years ago. I can't remember when it was, but that's kind of, I like doing business that way. I like to arrive at a label and just be like, hey, what's up? I'm like, this is what, and maybe it's a little bit in your face, but it's worked for me. But now I guess shoot out some emails, leave people comments on their social medias, follow people on Instagram, other artists that are doing well on Songtradr, hit them up, get advice from them, ask them if they'd be interested in collaborating with you. There's so many. I think musicians have their own magic, and just when musicians and musicians come together, it's just the most amazing thing. And there's a snowball effect of me meeting Benj now. Like, I really hope that we get to do something together. It's like you've opened up a whole new world to us that we wouldn't have had if it wasn't for this. Mm-hmm. So I think that the Songtradr platform is an amazing opportunity for people to really get to know each other, different artists, get to collaborate, and hopefully get some really good placements.
Well, that's very kind of you to mention Songtradr. Did you actually really turn up at the door physically?
I absolutely did. It was in Santa Monica. I can't remember where it was, but it was like I walked up this like weird flight of stairs and I just knocked on the door, and I can't remember who it was that I met. But they were awesomely kind, and we had a coffee and we sat on the couch, and I have a hilarious photo. I'll have to find it and then I'll send it to you to pitch. It's like I'm lying across both the guy's legs, like strewn across on the Songtradr couch.
Okay, well, that's awesome. I'd love to see that photo, and I'm sure the team would love to see it as well. So for the songwriters that are probably a little more shy than you, Esjay, they don't need to lie across people's legs. But I think there were some really good tips in there, actually, because not everyone finds it as easy to open up like that and knock on doors, etc., etc. So, good tips, like go into social media, connect, do what you can. And now we're on an online world. I guess it's kind of easier in a way. So I wanted to move on to the fact that both of you have been artists and are still artists, because I think actually once an artist, always an artist. What are some key differences to writing for yourself as the artist as opposed to writing for other artists or sync? Benj, what do you think?
I think when you write for other people, you have the opportunity to be way less precious about it. And that means that you can get things done a lot quicker because you're writing for either a specific set of constraints for sync, or you're writing for what this artist wants to say and how they want it to sound. And your opinion only matters so much. So what you like isn't really all that important. So to me, writing for myself is a lot more difficult because it always starts with, but who am I? And then it continues there endlessly. So when you're writing for somebody else or for a pitch, just like get it done. And it's not as much of like hard on yourself. Like it's not part of your identity necessarily.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. So you're in service of the project more so. And how about you, Esjay? Feel the same?
Yeah, writing for yourself is kind of like a little bit more selfish. You're less objective. It's just you really gratifying your art. When writing for an artist or working with an artist, like it's different. It's different because the label is often like, well, we want her to sound like Celine Dion. And then the artist is like, well, wait, why would the label have ever referenced us as Celine Dion? And then your job is to kind of hybrid, make the label happy, the artist happy, and then hit that goal, So it's kind of, it's a whole different ball game. For sync, I feel like a lot of the time, it's kind of like how close can I get to the reference song that I'm giving without being sued? So that's kind of that's kind of the vibe,
Or at least the label being sued or the artist.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, they're all different, and I think Benj can attest to that. You know, working with an artist and a label, it's a different thing. Writing a song for sync it's almost like doing your own artist project, because you don't really have anybody telling you what to do. You just have a direction, and then you get to do you. So it's kind of cool. It's a good balance.
Yeah.
I totally agree with that. Sorry for the extra noise. The landscapers just showed up in the neighbor's house.
Love it.
So I was going to add to that I think writing for sync in a lot of ways can be more fulfilling, and in a lot of ways it is, because everything that you write for sync, people are going to hear it, and a lot of people. And 90% of what you write for other artists will never see the light of day.
Right.
It doesn't matter if it's a great song. Some of the best songs I've ever written in my life have been shelved because it was written with this artist, for this label, and for whatever reason it didn't come out. So it's really a freeing and fulfilling thing to write music that people get to hear.
Yeah, well, we believe there's a home for every piece of music. So, stay hopeful for those pieces.
Yeah.
So how about the actual songwriting process itself? And you're writing with another writer, for instance. When do you actually broach the subject of songwriting splits? Who wants to take that one? Esjay, how about you?
I'm a big believer in democratic splits. It just works better. Honestly, it's like, I feel a lot of the time, 99% of the time, I walk into a room and I'm writing 99% of the song, but it's just easier to say it's 50-50. That's just how I like to work. I feel like it just gives you a better rapport with the artists. It's just super pro. You're like, that song would never have been written if that person wasn't in the room with you. So their energy, their story has channeled something in you that wouldn't have been there anyway. So I always go into a room with, when we're starting from scratch, that it's a 50-50 split. So, or if there's 5 people in the room, which is not ideal, but that's a 5-way split. When working with bands, I don't ideally, and I do a lot of work with rock and metal guys, and I don't ideally like to do the whole I get 20% and you guys get the rest. So I think it's good once you build that relationship that there's you guys are homies, you go, okay, I feel like it would be fair if I got X amount and then the band split the rest. So
I definitely think beforehand is ideal. When you start doing it afterwards, it always comes down to well, you only did X, Y, and Z, and this guy over here didn't do anything. Yeah. And it gets personal real quick.
So. Right, which is what you try to avoid, right?
Yeah, I don't really see it as music 50%, lyrics 50%. That's not, I feel like it's so much deeper than that, and this is maybe just my experience and my opinion, but I feel like it's just whatever you did, it doesn't really matter. This is our song, and we're gonna share in this beautiful gift together. So I think that's the best way to approach it. There's been a couple of times in life where some of my favorite songs have ended up having these horrible divorces, and they end up just leaving this bitter taste in your mouth, and it's you just rather go in going, it doesn't matter who's done what. If we're starting this from scratch, let's just split this equally. It's the best way to do it.
Yeah, and I guess you can. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you, Esjay? No. Oh, okay. So I was just going to say too that there are other considerations too outside of the actual songwriting bubble, where you're building relationships with the managers, with the label. For instance, you want to be known as someone who's really good to work with, and also if you're working with an artist who has a profile, then you can leverage that as well. So even if you did most of the songwriting on that song, hey, you can use that to get the next song. And I guess you could also argue too that if you get out of the songwriting process and you think, hey, I've done a few a few co-writes with this person and it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of magic there, then you can just not go back. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I do think, just to add a little note onto what I said, I think also being smart in your business as a songwriter, I think it's important that you also, I mean, for example, if you just happen to get put into a session with Rihanna and they only give you like 5%, I mean, who cares? You know, it's going to change your entire life, you know, for that very first song. So I think there's compromises to be made with who you're working with in the beginning while you are building your repertoire and your name. I think, I mean, I've done that a lot in my career, and I think it's worth it, you know, because it's a small price to pay for a huge cut.
Yeah, you agree, Benj?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think sometimes, as painful as it is, you kind of have to look at those splits as a business decision, and you may be paying a percentage for a placement. And I've done that before. And it really hurt, but in the end, I think it was worth it. And it's a stepping stone, because every time you do that, you have a little more clout and you have more to negotiate with.
Right.
So.
Yeah, no, I agree. It all has to be right, you know, because it is part of the journey. In both of your cases, you're producers as well as songwriters, so you play instruments very well, and I can see such an array of instruments behind both of you. For writers out there who only do top line, what would you say, are there any pros and cons of being able to just focus on top line, or do you like actually being able to do both, Esjay?
I think it's important as a top liner that you know how to play something. And don't crucify me for this, but I do. I think it's really important. I think it's always strange to me when people say that they're a songwriter and that they just write lyrics and melody, but they can't pen down like a basic chord structure. So I think, you know what, even if you just know where middle C is on the piano, and you can kind of go dang, 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 dang. This is what I feel like the melody should be. I think it'll be an asset to you.
Yeah, unless you're Bernie Taupin and you meet Elton John.
Right, right.
But how often does that happen?
I don't know. What do you think, Benj? What's your take on top line producer?
I mean, I agree with you. I think it's really, really important to be able to play something. One of my favorite artists and friends, Eamon, I used to call him the three-finger assassin, because he would just play triads with these three fingers, and he would write all of his songs that way. And he'd just sit there and he really, you could play any chord that you want, pretty much. And that's how he would write his songs. And it got the point across, and we would take that and produce it out into something. So I think it's, again, even if you're just like, and this is the root, and then it goes to this, and, you know, I think it's really important. But I also, pivoting from there, I think it's really, really valuable to know how to run some kind of a DAW, whether it's Logic or Pro Tools or Ableton. Just being able to have the independence to go and make your own music. And even if you don't know how to produce, and maybe it's not worth your time, if you can at least learn how to track your own vocals,
yep,
that would be amazing. And I would love you forever.
Game changer.
And unless you can't sing, and then.
Well, that's true. But knowledge, you know, just knowing how to run, you should have a basic knowledge of these programs. Just in a session, being able to jump over there and know how to hit play, and going from this point to that point in a song, being completely helpless is not useful when it's really not that much time to learn and have a basic understanding. So I think it's really important.
Got it. Okay. And then in the actual process, and you're writing to a brief, let's say, how do you maintain that creative spark through the process, but still ensure that you deliver on time and that the end product fulfills the brief? Esjay?
Whoa, putting me on the spot here. Damn, girl. I mean, I feel like as a producer, one of your many jobs, if you are in the room with a client, is to keep the energy up, is to make sure that you keep pumping this positive energy into them. Affirmations, you know, these are all the things that artists need in order to get these positive results. I mean, I haven't been in too many sessions, to be honest, where we haven't ended up with the result that we want. So I think, I mean, with usually sessions for me around about 8 to 10 hours. Those are usually the comfortable. We get everything tracked, everything done, the song ready to go. But I think as a producer, one of your jobs is to learn how to be emotionally intelligent. You know. And read what's going on in the room. Is this person feeling uncomfortable? Have I crossed the line? Am I being too boisterous? Am I, you know? So I think it's really important to have that emotional intelligence in the room, and that's gonna help a lot with your controlling your sessions and running a successful session.
I think it takes practice too, right? Because it's like a muscle. Yeah.
Like anything, it's like as a songwriter, you're like a professional athlete. You know, you got to be in the gym every single day, training twice a day for however many hours that is, lifting weights and then running. You know, you don't just, you have to be training every single day to get on your skill. I mean, I'm in this room by myself for like 16 hours a day, you know, so but because I also love music, but you always learning, you never stop learning, which is amazing.
Wow. And it looks so orderly and clean in there.
It's actually not. I shoved everything under the table so that you guys couldn't see it.
That's awesome.
I won't show you underneath.
Do you agree with that, Benj? Practice?
Losing connection.
Oh dear. Did you get that? So it takes lots of practice. It takes lots of practice. It's like exercising that muscle, doing it all the time, collaborating.
Yeah, I think that's one of the hard parts about this is the expectation of coming up with something. It's a stressful thing every session. Like, am I going to be able to do this today? And one thing that you can do is, just like Esjay said, is to just make a lot of music. That's the best way to learn and improve your skills. And a lot of times you'll find, especially in production, that you're like pulling things from this song that you just finished over here, and like little tricks that you learn. And you don't have to spend as much time like searching for sounds and ideas and things, because it's a muscle, and you just keep exercising, and you have to be okay with making crappy music.
Well, so talking about crappy music, what happens if you're working with an artist and the artist has a very strong idea of what they are and the music they want to write, but you know through your experience and perhaps according to the brief that you were given by the label, perhaps, that it's just not going to fly? How do you bring them on track without actually disrupting their creative flow and their confidence?
Oh, that is a really, really good question. I think that comes back to Esjay's point about emotional intelligence and kind of being empathetic towards what they're going through, and also from a business perspective and a negotiating thing, making it seem like it's their idea. So if you know what direction it needs to go, give up credit. I mean, if for some reason like there's an idea that maybe was your idea, like this melody or this lyric, it's okay to be like, hey, that was really great, you know, like what you did there. And if you can pull that off, because I think it's important for them to take ownership. And so not having an ego in in the situation really helps
Mhm.
things along, I think. I don't know if any of that made sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely, it makes sense. And also, so what you're saying is, okay, learn some chords and learn Logic or Pro Tools, and also get a psychology. Yeah. Learn people skills. What do you think?
It's a dark, dark world.
What do you
I'm not
think?
encouraging manipulation per se. I'm just saying that it's a matter of, well, maybe I am. I don't know. No, it's like
People skills, right? People skills.
Well,
yeah. I think. Go ahead, SJ.
I also think the situation, it can be different because, for example, if it's an independent artist that's paying you to do it, and they're just going to be like, even though they've hired you because of what you do, and they're going to be completely defiant. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm going to just be like, what, you're paying for it, and if this is what you want, this is what I'm going to give you. I personally think we could do better, but I'm going to let you do you, and that's what you've hired me to do. So, I mean, that's one way. When it comes to a label, I've often found like the best way to approach it is to try and get that song finished and start another one. So it's kind of like, so then you're bridging the gap of like, this person really loves this song and you're just maybe not feeling it, or you just have completely different ideas on it, but without making it negative. We're like, great, let's get that done. You go and do, like, sit on that and marinate on that for a while. Let's get this other idea started, you know. So it's like, whoa, we got 2 in one day. Look at us go, you know. So we're turning something that maybe feels like a little bit of a blockage into something positive.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Turning it into a positive. Okay, some tough lessons that you've learned during your careers, and the messier the better.
Jeez.
Well, I would say, this applies to licensing more. I think one of the biggest lessons is maintaining control of the master. It's caused a lot of headaches in the past. So knowing from the beginning who is going to own the recording, and this is for us as producers, but also for songwriters. I mean, if you go into a session expecting ownership, then you need to say that up front and negotiate that. Because there's a lot of work that goes into this after the songwriter walks out.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a big thing. And I think finding an attorney that you trust that isn't terribly expensive, and learning how to read agreements, and always read everything before you sign anything.
So a course in copyright law as well.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you don't have to learn all legalese. Just learn how to interpret what applies to your career, because most of these agreements are written in the same way. So because they're just kind of copying and pasting various sections together. So if you know how to interpret, and you could even talk to your attorney about that and like have them explain an agreement, like, what does this mean? That will help you in the long run, because I've signed away, you know, master ownership and publishing and not realizing it until afterwards. And, you know, like a year later when I try to go do something with the song, and I'm like, oh, in this agreement over here, you said that we own it. And you know, that was my mistake.
Yeah. I joke, but, you know, it's really good advice. Just, you know, the more knowledge that you have, the more empowered that you are.
Mm-hmm.
How about you, Esjay? Got any confessions to make?
I'm basically in the same page as Benj. Like, what he said is probably what the most important thing. You know, a lot of the time we go in and we do sessions, probably 90% of the time, for nothing up front, you know. So when the label comes back and you don't own your master, I think it's really, I think that Benj hit the nail on the head with that one. I haven't really had like any majorly negative experiences, to be honest. But I think it's you just need to continue to be teachable and be open to collaboration. I think one thing that I did learn is very early on is just not to be so cocky and precious about your art. You know, I think it's really important when you walk into a room with somebody that is so much more experienced than you to just be open to having them sow their seeds of knowledge into your work, you know. And I was just this young kid from South Africa, like freaking so full of myself, you know, like I write the best songs in the world, like, you know, who would ever, so I think it's important that you come in and you learn to collaborate with people, and that their little bits of magic might change the course of your career. So I think being humble is really important. Knowing your business. Again, I love what Ben said. I think that's really important to know your songwriting splits, what's happening with this master. Just really, this is your business. And still to this day, like, I go into most sessions super la-di-da just because I'm such a trustful person. You know, that it's like, let's just make a song together. And then 9 times out of 10, I probably will end up getting screwed. So, you know, not what to do, Songtradr people.
I love what you said there about learning from people that are more experienced. And from the other side of that, watching a young songwriter come into a session with me and another songwriter that's, you know, in her 50s and has written tons of #1 hits and had all these accolades, and to watch the young songwriter just kind of ignore the advice that she's giving and saying like, hey, if you change this song at X, Y, and Z, it will make the song 10 times better. And just like, nah, I think it's perfect the way it is. And to an extent, you want to stand your ground as an artist, but also realize that there is knowledge and wisdom with experience and age, and you should definitely listen to those people and hear them out, and most of the time just take their advice.
Yeah. That's an awesome note to actually segue into Q&A now, and the whole purpose for this too is to make sure that our community out there don't get screwed, right? More knowledge. So questions. Let me see now. This one comes from Facebook, and it's Charles K. Gillette. When doing an initial introductory email while asking, is there any way you can help them out? I think it's referring to what we spoke about earlier. Besides telling them what you do, would you recommend sending any links to what you do in the initial email?
Ooh. That is a hard question because every music supervisor disagrees on what they like. They're all very, very personal about their preferences. And I've watched this repeatedly on panels with music supervisors who are like, I hate it when you send me emails or MP3s in the email. And the next one was like, don't send me anything unless it has MP3s. And, you know, it's like, it's so important to them how they receive things that really it's kind of I have no idea. I mean, it's kind of harmless if it's like a streaming link, I think. That's.
Yeah, I think, I feel like MP3s, like I never like sending actual like WAV files or MP3s. I just feel like they get in people's inboxes and people get annoyed by them. So when it's almost like, you know what, when you're in a band, what is it called when you have an e-card or whatever? What's that thing called?
Oh, EPK?
Yeah, an EPK. Right. So it's like almost like having an EPK for yourself as a songwriter, where it's just like this is who I am. This is what I can do. Here's the link to some stuff. Let me know if you're available to jump on a call. Would love to send you a Starbucks because we can't do it in person. So can I send you one? Be really creepy.
That is fantastic. I would love to have somebody send me a Starbucks. That would be
right.
Great.
Or bother whiskey, whatever seals the deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I'll even lie across your lap.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right, let's go to Zoom. Rigoberto Gutierrez. For business, is it okay to write what comes from inspiration or tailor to what's trending?
Ooh.
What do we think?
I mean, for sync and licensing, I think often when there's like, let's just say there's a big song like Justin Bieber's Yummy or whatever's going on, so all of a sudden every music supervisor in the world wants a song that sounds like that. So maybe just kind of honing your skill set, you go and you make 10 songs that kind of have that same sonic value of that. You know, it's not going to hurt to have those in your repertoire. It's not going to hurt to see if you can do it, you know. So I think if you want to make money out of something, maybe stick to commercial stuff. I don't know, but at the same time, you know, if Nirvana hadn't have been Nirvana and gone outside of the box, you know, it's a really fine line. So I think you have to be able to read the brief, read the music supervisors. I don't know, do both.
I totally agree. Doing both, I think, it's actually really, really, really helpful to do what she's talking about and to go and learn how to do a song like whatever the Justin Bieber song, or just pick 10 songs and use it as your workout. I'm going to go and make a song that has the same essence as this song. Not ripping it off, but just, it's really useful to be able to identify what makes this song feel and sound the way it does. And once you learn those production and writing techniques at the same time, then you can apply those to other songs, and that's how new genres are created. Mm-hmm. It's by combining this thing with this thing, and I think that's really, really important. So I would use it as like a workout, like make songs that have the same feel as another song, mm-hmm. but also that way when you have inspiration, you're prepared and you have the tools to make something out of it. So really good.
Yeah.
Really good.
Sometimes creative inspiration comes from doing something new as well. So, hey, why not give it a shot? From Zoom again, Eric Hydebreeder. I hope I said that right. I know this probably varies, but how long do you usually get from getting a sync brief to delivering a final product?
Anywhere from like 2 days to like 5 hours. I mean, they're really, really quick.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes it's a couple of weeks, but I feel like that's pretty rare. I don't know. What do you think, Esjay?
Yeah, I think you're right. Often I get emails like, hey, we're looking for a song. We need it by like 12 noon. And it's like 8 in the morning. It's like, hey, do you think you could throw something together? Maybe, maybe not, you know, depending on your schedule. But I mean, once again, that comes back to what Benj was just saying, what we said earlier about having all of these songs that sound a certain way, because, you know, you might be able to throw one out that hits that brief. So yeah, every brief is different.
Yeah, and you're building your own catalog too. So if it doesn't work for this one, you've got it in storage now, yep. Ready for the next 4-hour window or 2-hour window.
Right.
So from Facebook, Iki Chikimo. Do you find they use songs with lyrics more or more just instrumentals, or is it pretty balanced?
For like sync placement, I think it's mostly instrumentals, but I mean, seems like they kind of pick and choose. So they'll have like mostly instrumental, and then they'll have like one line, you know, kind of how they do in trailers, all instrumental, and then pick this one little spot, you know, or the chorus or whatever. So, I mean, my thought is, if you write a song and it's an instrumental track, you might as well put a top line on it, because at the end of the day, you still have the instrumental. So, and the title is one of the most important things for them to go, oh, what is this? Click. So if that helps at all, pick a really interesting, catchy title and then write a song around it.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's 50-50 on what people are looking for. It's like sometimes it's male vocals specifically, sometimes it's female vocals specifically, sometimes it's instrumental specifically, you know. So I think it's good, again, to have a entire, just like you said, to have a bunch in your catalog.
Yeah, but remember to keep those instrumentals and make sure it's ready to go.
And it's really important, and Ben touched on this earlier, that you really have your session sorted out, you know, that you've got your stems printed out, that you've got your instrumental, that you've got your vocals with and without effects, that you've got, you know, everything, so that when you actually get the thumbs up, it's like, here's the Dropbox link, boom, everything's there. So, and I know that on Songtradr you can upload everything, and I'm guilty of not uploading anything. So
yeah, Esjay. And can I also add, can you please include your lyrics, guys out there? Because, you know, even sometimes we love to use songs for, you know, like a little social post and things like that, but we're not sure perhaps if it's a foreign language, we're not sure if we can post it or not. So if you have a lyrics and then maybe a translation for English, that's very, very helpful.
Awesome.
Yeah. I have a text edit document that I try to include in every, like, as I'm releasing a bunch of new music as an artist right now through Songtradr, which they have been amazing, by the way. The best distribution service I've used.
Amazing. Thank you. Wow.
So, wow. I'm so interested in this.
Yeah, so when I put together a release package, I put the main version with the mastered wave, and then I include the MP3 version, and then I have the alternates as far as instrumentals with oohs and ahs, or alternate versions, like here's a minimal one or an orchestral version, and then a folder with the artwork and promo pics, and then a text edit document that has the title, the artist, the songwriters, and their IPI numbers with ASCAP and whatever, because you have to register it. The lyrics, anything you can think of, just to have it right there, so that when you deliver it, then they don't have to ask any questions. And it's not that hard if you have the thing right there, the text edit, just write down everything that you can think of. And I actually just copy the text edit from my previous release and delete that information as I'm going through and update it with the songwriters, the splits, who owns the master, all that kind of stuff. It helps to kind of consolidate it and just be ready.
Yeah, awesome advice. And
be like Benj, guys. Be like Benj. Damn, he's so organized. I'm gonna take some notes from you.
Yeah, and by the way, thanks so much to both of you for the positive things that you're saying about Songtradr. You know, just full transparency, we didn't actually ask you to say anything, right? So I guess it's a very nice thing that's happening here. Anyone out there, you know, if you're saying, hey, you know, we didn't ask. So let's see. I think we've got time for a couple more. You guys still good for a couple?
Yeah.
Good.
Okay, good. Let me see. Aaron Cruz from Facebook. How important is it to have a finalized...
What's up, Aaron?
How important... I just got distracted so easily then. It's like, hey, I want to join in the fun. How important is it to have a finalized master track before you begin to shop it? Do you often find that the mix/master can get in the way if it's not perfect?
Esjay?
Great question, Aaron.
I always try to, I mix with the mastering chain. So if at any point, whatever I export, if they like it, it's ready to go. It's already mastered. So whether it's totally polished and everything's automated and what I would normally do or not, that's something else entirely. But I try to not put anything out that isn't to master level, and it's just part of the process that I've developed. So I don't know if that helps. I would always go for the gold personally.
Yeah.
I agree, actually. I think that you want to give the buyer every chance to say yes. And, you know, if perhaps the production quality isn't there, it might actually be the one turn off point, even though they might go, hey, the song's great, but we just don't have time, you know. So
Yes.
I would say, yeah, go for gold. Good advice. All right, Facebook. Let's do one more. Raphael Bachi or Baki. Talking about music trends, do you use to follow them or you try to create them? Do you follow them or do you try to create them? Music trends.
Both.
Yeah.
Do you have anything on that, SJ?
No, we're probably on the same page with it. I think it's important to be able to sonically hit what's trending, you know, but obviously you want to keep that artistic integrity and hope for something fresh to come out, you know, and take those risks and chances. Just like we touched on Nirvana earlier, you know, but you've got to be willing to go outside of the box. So probably straddling the line between.
Well, I think what you said earlier about going and making a song that feels like this other song, I think that's really helpful that you develop that skill. And so using that for sync, I think is more
Totally
prominent and useful. So being able to follow the trends, be on the forefront, leading edge, if you will. But for your own stuff, I would definitely kind of do your own thing, break the mold. I would definitely use what is trending right here to kind of shape what you're doing, but I would not go and release as an artist something that sounded like something that came out 6 months ago.
right.
I would try and move forward in whatever way. So it may have elements of what's already been out, of course, but forge ahead with your own stuff and stay in line with everybody else with sync, I think.
Yeah, well said. Well, that's all we have time for, I'm sorry to say. SJ and Benj, thank you both so much for being on Happy Hour. It's truly been great. You guys are awesome. Thank you for our audience too, in here and out there. We hope you found this happy hour valuable and enjoyable. You'll be able to view the full session on YouTube tomorrow. Look out for a link in the webinar follow-up email or the post on our social channels. And let us know in the comments what you would like us to talk about on these happy hours. Coming up in the next episode, these musicians were touring some of the biggest stages around the world with names like Shakira, Katie Lang and Pink. Unfortunately, as we all know, the world has experienced a virtual shutdown of live performance. So find out how our special guests have coped with this sudden loss of work and what they're doing to stay connected and active. So look out for details on that. Guys, life is tough enough, so be kind to each other. See you in 2 weeks for our next happy hour. Cheers. Thank you, SJ, Ben.
Bye, guys.
For having us.
Bye.